Hold up. Where George?
Who's that?
George? Oh, there's the Tina Turner. That right. What love got to do with it?
Who's that? What can I say?
Oh,
what can I say?
Right. What love got to do with it?
Who's that? What can I say?
Yeah.
What can I say?
My mic might be too high. Let me check it. Okay.
Let's see. We're getting a little feedback. So I gotta see if my let's see, we're getting a little feedback. So I gotta see if my phone. Let's see, we're getting a little feedback. Mm-hmm. So I gotta see if my phone is. So I try to push everything out of the way. I try to turn off my phone and everything. So I try to push everything out of the way. I try to. And we're getting a delay. Turn off my phone. A delay. Okay, are we good? I think we're good to go. Okay, are we good? I think we're good to go.
Okay. You good?
Okay. We good?
I think so.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Georgia Allen. I'm coming to you live on Thursday at 12 noon with GA for Justice. Thursday at 12 noon with GA for Justice. Okay, and our today's topic, of course, is Speak Up or Shut Up, the 10-1 district system. Today's topic, of course, is Speak Up or Shut Up, the 10-1 district system. And we're going to open today with a tribute to both Tina Turner and Jim Brown. I forgot to tell you to do Jim Brown because we lost two icons. Yes. Jim Brown, we lost two icons. Yes. And we just want to pay tribute to Tina Turner. She was a singer, an actor, an activist. Pay tribute to Tina Turner. She was a singer, an actor, an activist.
If we want to do is maybe we want to just take you off the screen a minute and then come back on.
Okay.
To see if that take it.
Okay.
See if that take it.
Okay. I'm going to sign out and sign back in. How about that?
Wait, let me see. It might be. I think it's
sign out and sign back in. How about that?
That's coming from your end. Yeah. Try sign out from your end. It might be. I think it's
sign out and sign back in. How about that?
That's coming from your end. Yeah. Try it. What's going on with this? All right.
Hello. Did it work that time?
I think it took care of it.
All right.
let me go off and come back
on.
on.
Right.
let me go off and come back on.
Right.
let me go off and come back on.
Right.
Let me go off. Let's try it again. I think.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. It looks like it.
Sound like
All right.
1 minute. I don't know what this is. I ain't never had this problem.
Yeah, because I turned off my cell phone because I was worried that my cell phone was feeding back.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, because I turned off my cell phone because I was worried that
Hmm.
my cell
Can you turn your volume down a little?
some more. Okay, it's like at number 8.
Yeah, turn it down a little bit.
Some more. Okay, it's
Now
like
say
at number
something.
8.
You're still. Yeah, turn it down a little bit. Now speak. Now you want to try speaking?
Good evening.
Now you want to try speaking?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good afternoon. Good evening. Good afternoon.
It's good on you. Check mine's now. Hello? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Check mine's now. Hello? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
That might be done. Taking care of it. Now, I think we're ready.
I'm ready. I tell you, 2 weeks in a row, and this system is fighting with us. But anyway, I hope the audience can hear. I do hear some feedback, but I'm hoping that you guys will be okay on your end. Maybe it's just here with us in the studio.
Yeah.
But as always, I just want to welcome you to GA for Justice every Thursday at 12 noon to 1 o'clock. And we bring you greetings. We always want to thank Mr. Henderson Vaughn for opening up the airwaves to us. We call him AKA Dream Maker and AKA Captain 85.
You already know.
As always, we bring you a conversation each and every week. And that conversation is for information, a conversation for correction, and sometimes it's a conversation for transformation. As I shared with Henderson before coming on the air today, I said, we've lost a couple of icons. I forgot to remind him of Jim Brown. And I wanted to just sort of pay tribute to a couple of our icons that we recently lost. First, Jim Brown, because we lost him last week. And Jim was an interesting gentleman. He was a former football player, running back, but he also kicked extra points. A lot of people may not know that, but he was one of the best running backs in the NFL. And that was during the time when they only played 12 games a season. They're up to 16 games per season. And it took almost 40 years for someone to break his record, even though they were playing more games during the season. At one point in time, because he was a civil rights activist, he held a Cleveland summit. And what he did is he called other athletes together so that they could discuss the fact that people were attacking Muhammad Ali. And so he brought Bill Russell and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Carl Stokes and others to sit down and decide that they needed to protect one of their own, another athlete, which was, of course, Muhammad Ali, who had changed his name and become a Muslim. And Mr. Brown went on to create economics for youth. He also worked on building their skill sets to offer them alternatives to the streets. So with that being said, we want to acknowledge actor, athlete, activist, businessman, Mr. Jim Brown. Now, next, we want to acknowledge the one and only, the dynamic Tina Turner. The one and only, the dynamic Tina Turner. And I changed my look a little bit today because I love Tina Turner. And so I bought outfits, mini skirts,
What?
everything. As you know, I typically go natural, but today I put on my Tina wig so that we can roll on the river.
You almost look like her.
Yes, we're rolling today. And we're going to pay tribute to her as well. She was a singer, she was an actor, and she also was an activist as well. She fought, and not only in her home, but she also fought outside of her home. And so we want to pay tribute and say thank you to Ms. Tina Turner through the fights, the failures, the fullness, and the flourishing. You made the tough into toughness. And for that, we want to always give you tribute, pay you tribute, and give you thanks for all the hard work, for all those years that you fought through every battle, and you always came out on top. So we definitely want to speak to both of those people before we get the show started.
That it's only the thrill for me, girl. My possess a trap. It's physical, only logical. You must try to ignore that it means more than that. Love, what's love got to do? It's got to do.
All right, and that is Ms. Tina Turner. And she lived to see 83 years. And I believe that Jim Brown lived to almost 89 years of age. So they both lived a very, very long life, and fortunately a productive one. But today our conversation is going to be about speak up or shut up, the 10-1 district system. And you say, well, why are you talking about that again? Because you've talked about it a number of times, and it's critically important that we keep our eye on the ball. We live in a city that violated the Voting Rights Act. The city was sued, the city lost, and the city continues to spend money to try to change what the law has said is now valid with 10 single member districts. And so we're dedicating the show to E. George Mins because he came before us and he was a strong civil rights activist challenging the city over and over again. Hi, George. George and I actually went to high school together, so I knew him for many years. He also passed away several years ago. And I've never done a show where I actually dedicated time to speak to the different things that Mr. Mins did on behalf of the city of Virginia Beach. And so I wanted to kind of share with you someone who fought the battles, even if he had to fight alone. He fought to open up doors in the city of Virginia Beach, even when he had no one standing with him. George Mins continued to fight against injustices here in the city of Virginia Beach. And so since we're fighting now to ensure that the 10-1 district system stay in effect, I thought this would be an excellent opportunity to just kind of talk a little bit about E. George Mins. And so when I think of E. George Mins, I think of him as being our Reverend Vernon Johns, the gentleman that said, if you see a good fight, get in it. And if anybody knows George Mins, he did not hesitate to get in a fight and definitely didn't hesitate to get into a good fight.
Hello.
When you see George Mins, he was our Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He said he always walked with his head up because he listened when Dr. King said, straighten your back, because a man can't ride your back unless it is bent. And E. George Mins, he was not bending his back. He was standing up straight. So when we see George Mins, he is our Fannie Lou Hamer because he said, I'm sick and tired of being tired. So he continued to fight the good fight. And then when I think of George Mins, I think of him as our John Lewis when it says, get into good trouble. And George did not hesitate to get into trouble and more good trouble. And so he was just a really great person to know. And the good part about it is a lot of people want everybody to pat you on the back and always say all these kind things about you. But George was a Malcolm X, and Malcolm X said, be careful of the person that everybody likes. So George was not a person that everybody likes, but he was a person that did the work. And so I have a few quotes by Malcolm. One, power never takes a back step, only in the face of more power. So if you don't want to just be without power, you better take away some power from those who are powerful. He also said, Malcolm also said, education is a passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. That was George Mins. He was in the law library day in and day out. And as long as that library was open, if there was information that George needed, George was at that law library over at Regent University, pulling the books, getting the information so that he could stand before council and challenge them on the things that were not in the best interest of the community. And then the final one, quote from Malcolm, because he was our Malcolm X. There is no better teacher than adversity. Every defeat, every heartbreak, every loss contains its own seed, its own lesson on how to improve your performance for the next time. And that's who George Mins was. George was always in the fight, and he understood that you never felt like there were defeats. Those defeats were just lessons. Those defeats were just seeds. And so when you plant those seeds, they grow, and then they grow and become more seeds, more plants, and more trees. And so with that being said, we're going to move on over. And again, we want to just pay tribute to Mr. E. George Mins of Virginia Beach, Virginia. For those of you who are listening around the city, around the country, or wherever, Virginia Beach has been in a struggle and a fight day in and day out. But guess what? There are some of us out here who refuse to give up. And I say that again, there are some of us who absolutely refuse to give up, because a lot of people want things to be a snap of the finger or microwave and everything is going to be fixed. That's not reality. Reality is you have to get in that fight, and you have to stay in that fight for the long haul. You can't stay in it for a little while and then jump up and go and do something else and then think that you won the fight. You must be willing to stay in the fight for not just one day, not just a couple of days, but for the long haul. And with that being said, we're going to talk a little bit about how important it is for us to stay engaged in this fight to ensure that the city of Virginia Beach not only adopt the 10-1 district system, but they change the charter, rewrite the charter to make sure that this is the voting system of our city going forward. Not just for one election system, one election time, but going for election after election after election. And there were a number of things that took place in terms of winning the opportunity to elect the representative of your choice. There had to be a lawsuit. Someone had to be willing to go out there and say to the city of Virginia Beach, what you are doing is wrong. And I'm willing to get attorneys and sue you on behalf of an invalid VRA. Okay, they didn't follow the Voting Rights Act. Now, this wasn't the first time. The city of Virginia Beach has been doing this for decades. Of course, in 1994, they put a referendum on the ballot, thinking that the people would vote against it. The people voted that they wanted single member districts, and they didn't want anybody voting for the people that was going to represent them in their district. And they almost had a fit. They were like, oh my God, I didn't think that people were smart enough to be able to go to the polls and say what they wanted. So once the people decided that they wanted districts in 1994, guess what? In 1995, the legislators decided, well, we got to rewrite this referendum and put a new one on the ballot, because obviously we didn't confuse people enough. And so therefore, we need to rewrite what the referendum says so that they can vote against what they previously voted for. Now, you got to be really, really nasty to hear from the public who you claim to represent, to hear from the public, and the public says, I want a 10-1 district system. I want to vote for the candidate of my choice. I want a candidate that will represent my interests, my community interests, my neighborhoods. Because keep in mind, a district is not just one teeny tiny neighborhood. A district is large enough that it protects and is supposed to protect a number of communities, a number of neighborhoods and all. And so those people have some idea about what is going on in their community. They have some idea of their concerns. They have some idea of things that need to be fixed. They have some idea of where the money needs to go in order to change outcomes in their neighborhood, in their community. Well, we had legislators that went back up to Richmond and formed their little coalition and rewrote the referendum, put it back on the ballot. And then in 1995, after they got all the wording just right, and asked the people, do you want to vote for 11 members, or do you only want to vote for 5? So the people looked at it and it was like, well, they're just going to let me vote for 5. I think I want to vote for all 11. Confusion. And so what they ended up doing is they said, well, no, I don't want to vote for just 5. I want to vote for all 11. And ultimately, they ended up changing the district system, or not changing it, but keeping it as it was. And in the city of Virginia Beach, we had what we call a hybrid system, which forced people to live in a district, but then have to get votes from everybody in the entire city, which is extremely, extremely costly to do that. We are the largest city in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Approximately 249 miles of city land. Okay. That just talks about the land base. We're not talking about all the water that's around the city of Virginia Beach that you got to travel over and everything, but it's a very large city land-wise. And so we understood that if people could vote in districts, they would be smaller, more compact. Folks could go door to door. They could meet the person who's running for office, and the people who are running for office could meet the constituent base. So many of us felt that that would be a much better system. It would also allow for more diversity. And so for those of you who are wondering, why am I talking about this? I'm talking about it because there is a survey online on the city website that you can click on. It says Speak Up, and it allows you to give input with regards to making sure that the 10-1 system stays in place. This is important because this is going to affect you, your children, your children's children for years and years to come. And so I'm here to talk to you about how important it is for you to go online, click on, and voice your opinion with regards to the voting system. And the reason why I call this Speak up or shut up, because every time we go out and we educate the community and we tell them how important it is to vote, or we tell them don't just vote on presidential elections, make sure you vote on school board elections, city council elections, state legislature, vote for your governor, vote for your state senate. It goes in one ear and out the other. But when they see those new legislators taking their seat, and those new legislators are making laws that go against the things that they want and the things that they believe in, then they're on the phone. Hey, what can we do about this? Well, if you had voted, you wouldn't have to worry about what to do about this or that. And so I'm pushing this again because tomorrow is the last day for you to give your input. Tomorrow is the last day that you can give your input. And we want you to give your input. Many of the churches are sending information out to their congregants. People are out and about talking to persons with regards to the district system. Also, there is an online petition that you can go online and say you are in favor of the 10-1 voting system. It's on Do the Right Things, and it's spelled DUETHERIGHTTHINGS. Do the Right Things. And if you Google that, you should be able to pull it up and take a look at that and see the petition that is online. But even with that, you still want to do the survey. If there's another lawsuit, that data can be used in the lawsuit in order to push forward what the people have asked for. That's the critical part. The people have asked for the 10-1 voting system. If you participated in any of the speak up sessions, the city had 12 speak up sessions where you could go in every district in the city. You could select, do I want to go over in District 1 or District 10? Do I want to speak at Bayside? Do I want to speak at Williams Farm? Do I want to speak at Kellum? You had the opportunity to speak at all these different areas and have your voice heard. If you weren't able to get to any of those in-person sessions, you also had the opportunity to go online, because they also had 2 Zoom sessions that you were able to go online and speak there. If you were not able to get to any of the in-person, which was 10, 1 in each district, or the 2 online sessions, you still have another opportunity to voice your opinion by going online and completing the survey. And I want you to know that one thing about politics, numbers matter. They're checking how many people filled out the form. What was the percentage? In District 1, did District 1 have 3%? The District 9 have 5%. The District 10, did they have 7%? They look at numbers. They look at outcomes. And if you're not participating, if you're not engaged, people who have the power, as I talked to you about power earlier with what Malcolm said, people who have power do not give up power easily. You have to take the power away from them. And for communities of interest, communities who have been disenfranchised, communities who are concerned about how money is being allocated to their school, because their school is over in this location, but the other school gets a lot more money simply because of the zip code. If you're concerned about any of those issues, I recommend that you let your voice be heard. If it doesn't bother you, that your children don't have the same equipment, the same technology, the same resources, then be complacent. I can't make you vote. I can't make you speak up. But I can tell you, don't come after the fact and expect me to engage and spend my valuable time trying to correct something that would not have needed to be corrected if you had been diligent about getting involved in the first place. I would not have to sit there and listen to you complain if you were involved in the first place. So, to those of you who are listening, this is GA for Justice. Today's topic is Speak Up or Shut Up, the 10-1 district system. And that sounds a little harsh. It sounds harsh, I know. But sometimes you have to be harsh. Sometimes you have to be in your face type messaging. Because if we don't, people feel like, well, it must not be that important. They were really nice and they didn't really push, or they didn't do this or that and the other. Well, guess what? I am pushing today. Guess what? I am a little harsher than usual today. Guess what? I am in your face today because you have all of 24 hours or less to fill out the form. Go online. It is on vbgov.com, vbgov.com, and Google Speak Up, and you will be able to go in for public input. And you want to get to the form that says survey for the 10-1 district system, the new voting system. It may say new voting system. It may say 10-1 district system. But you want to get there and to that page, and you want to voice your opinion. But not only that, you want to get your family and friends. As I shared with one of the ministers, I said, look, talk to the people in your church. You got deacon boards. Churches got more committees and groups. The choir can sit down, all of them with their tablet, and all sit down when they go to choir practice and do the survey. And sit down and do the survey. Okay, the deacon boards, they can all come together, even if they're not face to face. They can get on a Zoom call, and while they're on the Zoom call, they can talk to each other and say, "Okay, let's do this survey together," and do the survey. The youth teams, the step dancers, the praise dancers at churches, praise dancers at the schools, the step dancers, step teams. But there are a number of ways that you can come together over the next 2 days. That's today and tomorrow, and get this done. We had an illegal voting system here in the city of Virginia Beach. Voting Rights Act passed, and our city never followed the Voting Rights Act. Never. Until last November 2022 was the first time in the history of the city of Virginia Beach that they actually did a voting system that fell within the guidelines of VRA, Voting Rights Act of 1965. So, with that being said, we want you to get engaged. We want you to be involved. And we don't just want it for you personally. We want it for you and your family, your children, your grandchildren. We want it for your cousins, your aunts, your uncles to get involved. We want it for your church members. We want it for your sorority sisters. And we want it for your Masons and your Eastern Stars and your daisy chain. All of those people are affected by how we vote here in the city of Virginia Beach. And if we don't vote in our best interests, people will vote in their best interests. So that is critically important, that you get out there and you voice your opinion. If you don't speak up, then I'm sorry. You need to shut up. You can't go out there complaining at the barbershops. Your favorite place to go is the barber shops and the beauty shops, so that you can sit around and say, oh, Virginia Beach, man, I worked for them, or I was working for such and such. And because of some of the laws that they passed, my company had to lay off, or what have you. The first question I have for you is, did you vote? Did you vote? Did you participate? Did you engage? And if you weren't able to vote, because we do have people who are not able to vote, they don't have their voting rights, guess what? You have family members who do have their voting rights. So ask them to vote on your behalf. If you have a driver's license and you got an auntie who can't drive, then drive them to the election, drive them to the place on election day, to the precinct. There is something that you can do that makes you an engaged citizen. So, no, you can't vote. But if you found 10 family members who weren't voting, they are now voting on your behalf. That's 10 more people that's participating who were not participating. So in essence, you got 10 votes. You have to see it from a different standpoint. You cannot keep looking at things in the old way. You have to challenge yourself. You have to stretch yourself, and you have to recognize that this is not a microwave oven system. This system is long. It is a marathon. It is not a sprint. Folks like Ruby Bridges and others who are willing to go to school, and even after she got to school at 6 years old, she had one teacher and a classroom that they had designed for her so that she couldn't be around any of the other children. Okay? Now, what if she had said, well, I don't want to come here because none of the children are talking to me? She would have never made the history, but she also would have never had the type of impact that she had on that teacher who was teaching her at the predominantly white school, or all white school at the time. And so this was the first time in her history that she actually saw a white teacher. Was at 6 years old when she went to school, because up until that point, back during that period of time, our teachers were also in our churches. So we saw our teachers, we saw our doctors, we saw our ministers. All of these people were right there in our communities. So many of them we knew personally. And so for her to leave her community and go to a brand new school and get taught by someone who didn't look anything like her, that was very, very different. But she could have quit, but she didn't. She stuck it out. And ultimately, even though the little children didn't like that idea of having to be in a classroom with a child of color, a beautiful child of color, ultimately, they began to go to school and become a part of a system that ultimately integrated. Same thing happened here in Norfolk, Virginia. What was it? The Norfolk 17.
17.
Okay. Similar situation. They go to school with children that they didn't play with, didn't really know. And so voting is the same thing. It is a process, and it doesn't happen overnight. But it can happen if you're consistent. It can happen if you bring your numbers. It can happen in your favor if you work as a unit. Some of you may have heard me say, united, we bargain. Divided, we beg. Now, if you're tired of begging someone to do this or that or the other, then I suggest that you unite and bargain, that you unite and you go into city council chambers. There should be absolutely no reason with all of the churches and all of the organizations that we have here in the city of Virginia Beach that we do not have men sitting in council chambers every single solitary council meeting. Same thing with school board. I will assure you just like things changed in neighborhoods when the Black Panthers came in and said, look, we're going to start a feeding program. We're going to stop the police officers from running over our children when they're on their bicycles and tricycles. I mean, in LA, police officers literally ran over little Black children riding a tricycle. Now, you got to be a teeny tiny man to feel like you are some brave soul to run over a child on a tricycle. So all of these were processes that cause a change in behaviors, that cause a change in outcomes. Same thing in neighborhoods where the Muslims were very concerned about the amount of drugs that were being dumped into Black communities. They came into those communities and they began to clean up those communities. The kids began to go to school instead of staying at home or feeling like they had sick tummies or whatever. All of those things were processes. 10-1 voting system is a process. Henderson?
Yes. Yeah, it's important. And, I also want to compliment you because a lot of people don't know you was one of the persons was able to get this system passed, and people think that this job is easy, and spending time, your effort, being at one time the president of the NAACP, and also when we used to be affiliated with the APAC Association, spending hours and going to marches. And I know when we went up to Washington for the 50-year March on Washington, all these things, it takes time. And, do I want to spend 8 hours doing this? I want to spend 4 hours, but you chose to do it. And some of the things that people are benefiting from today is because of the hard work you already put in. George Mintz put in a lot of hard work, and Carl Wright, being its marshal, and Reverend Allen. All these people that people don't see behind the scenes are spending hours. Gary McCullen. All these people sometimes fail to realize that somebody's doing work to get something done. But then when you go down to city council to stand up there in front of the council and you look back and it ain't nobody but you. And it gets annoying. But like I keep telling people, when some people are born to do certain things, but God choose to send others. And, like I said, the names I call, those are the ones that God, you're one of the people that God chose to send to do what you're doing. Now you're back being vice president of the NAACP. I mean, how much work you got to keep on doing?
Hopefully we'll build this group up and they'll be able to keep moving on.
Yeah, but it's the effort, because it's the young people that is at stake.
Absolutely.
It's the young people that are dying at 6, going to prison at 6 or 12 years old, 17, because the fear, they fear that nobody's really caring.
Absolutely.
And when they give up, they don't care. But if we can reach one or teach one, then you continue, because 10 will teach. It only takes 1 to 10 tell 10 people, and that's how the numbers go. But
absolutely,
because of you, like I said, is even when I went on the internet, looking for different pictures and stuff today, and stuff, your picture popped up as a plaintiff in getting the voting system changed in Virginia Beach. It's on the internet. It's on the news media. But some people for some reason, want to leave you out of the effort that made this possible. And I refuse to allow that to happen, because nobody controls my voice.
Right.
And if they try, I tell them like this, the Bible says this: touch not my anointing and do my prophets no harm. And I'm not naming claim to either one, but if you want to test the waters to find out, then I tell people go right ahead, because somebody has to stand up
Absolutely.
for the newborn. And that's,
Absolutely.
and I wanted, we pay homage to everybody living or dead, but sometimes, I get upset because a lot of work you've done, because I've been there, I monitored, and it's not what somebody told me, it's what I witnessed. And I want to applaud you for you continuing to do what you do, even dressing up as Tina Turner.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And again, I fight because I know that I have children and grandchildren and great grandchildren. And as the Lift Every Voice says, those who are unborn, we won't even get to see them. And we have to fight for even the unborn, because if we don't, this system is going to continue to go in the same way that it is going. Even when we work hard to increase the number of people on our school board and on our city council, we still have to educate them, because it's not enough to get people on school board, on city council, in our state legislatures. And I think that's the other failure that we sometimes make. We think that, okay, well, we put these people in and they're just supposed to just boom and everything is supposed to get fixed. It doesn't work like that. It does not work like that. What we are doing is what Malcolm said, planting seeds. Okay. You're planting seeds. You're planting seeds so those seeds will grow. Okay. Thank you, Juanita. Voting or not voting has consequences. You are absolutely right. And that's what people fail to understand. When they are not voting, there are still going to be consequences. That's why, I kept trying to figure out, what am I going to talk about? What am I going to talk about? And the thing that just kept coming to me was speak up or shut up, because I know, because I've been in the barbershops, I've been in the beauty salons, and the same people who are not engaged have more to say and all types of negative things to say about this person who's elected. And I said, well, have you asked them about that? Well, no, I haven't. How can you expect anybody to pass any legislation on your behalf if you have not told them what you're concerned about? How do you expect to get things done if you haven't formed your own coalition? If you have some problems in your community, I'm looking over here at what they did on Sullivan Road, where they have all these spokes and spikes and things in the road. And I'm thinking to myself, shouldn't that just be a speed bump? And they can have the wider speed bumps instead of the little short ones that you see a lot of times in apartment complexes. But they have spokes and you got to weave all around this stuff. Well, that is something that if somebody is concerned about, that they should bring a group of people together. First, introduce it to their council member and say, we're concerned about this, because if someone comes late at night, they're a little bit tired, they don't have to be drunk or anything, but it's dark outside. And yes, you can see them very well in the daytime, but I don't think they glow in the dark at night. Okay. So things like that. So that's why I ask people when they want to complain, have you made your concerns known to people who are in positions of authority to pass laws to change outcomes? And that's what I find a lot of times, especially in our community, is they talk amongst themselves. They, I don't like this, I don't like that. Nothing is going to change talking to your neighbor. Your neighbor doesn't sit on city council. Your neighbor is not on school board. Your neighbor is not in the state legislature. Your neighbor is not the governor. if you want things to change, you must tell people, you must put it in writing of the concerns that you have. And then you must follow up. Telling someone that you need something done is not enough. It's a start. Okay. That's just like I went to the track meet with one of my great granddaughters. She's run track. Okay. Now they go to the starting line and the guy shoots the gun. Now, if that child stands at that starting line and never runs, she will not get to the finish line. And just standing there and waiting for the other folks across the finish line does not mean she ran a race. She just stayed at the starting line and stayed at the finish line. That's all she did. She did not win a race because the other folks came and she walked over to the other side of the starting line and decided that, okay, I'm already across the starting line when these guys they run around the track. So that's the same thing with elections. That's the same thing with having representation. If you have not told your representative that these are the concerns that you have in your neighborhood, or these are the concerns that you have with regards to policy, nothing will change. You have to make that known to them. And then you have to continue the pressure. You have to continue to ask. You have to continue to say, what is the status? And you must follow up. And then you ask them, send me a status in writing. So if they say, well, hey, I wrote the bill up, I took it to the rules committee, to make sure it's within the guidelines or whatever. And then from there, we took it over here. And from there, we did this. You want to know, what are they doing? And so that's where we kind of miss the boat a lot of times. We talk to each other, but we don't talk to the people who have the power to make legislative changes or policy changes. Councils make policy changes. Congress and state legislatures, they make legislative changes. They change laws all the time. The rules in our city is generally with regards to zoning and things of that nature, with regards to parking and with regards to speed limits on roads. Those are the type of things that you tend to see in your city, local city government. Real policies such as changes in the education system and what new rules and regulations are going to be in place. That tends to happen either on a federal level or a state level. So that's the other thing. We probably need to start having meetings to help people understand levels of government and how these government entities work. I was over at the planning office yesterday. I had to take some paperwork over there, and I'm looking at all the different booths. One booth says zoning, one booth says customer service. Each booth had another name. Well, business license, I think was one of them. But as I sat there, I says, why doesn't the city just have a video online? You click on and you say, okay, I'm going to start a restaurant. Okay, what are the things that I'm going to have to do to get through all of the processes in the city so that I can, get my license, so I can open up my doors, so that I make sure that everything is in order. Am I in the right zone? Do they actually allow a restaurant over here in this zone? And so these are the type of things, and it didn't occur to me because I don't really have to go to planning, but there's a guy that I know there from being a part of another group that I needed to talk to him, because I knew, because he was there, he had information that I probably wouldn't have unless I knew somebody in that office. And so these are the type of things that happen, and everybody don't know people in all of these various offices that they can go to and talk to them directly. You don't know them. You're busy working. You're busy raising families. You're busy doing all these things. And so you may not know that this is the office that you need to go to if you want to do this or if you want to do that. So with that being said, again, this is about you getting engaged, going out, making sure that you fill out the survey, that you have your voices heard. And if you're listening today, encourage others to go out and fill out the survey, make their voices heard. Everybody should have 3 to 5 people who are filling the survey out. And once those 5 people, you notify them, they should then in turn contact another 3 to 5 people. And we keep doing that and keep doing that. But we are coming to a close of the show.
All right.
As always, I love having these conversations. And hopefully, again, we try to have a conversation for information, when necessary, a conversation for correction, and as always, a conversation for transformation. Again, I am Georgia Allen with GA4 Justice every Thursday at 12 noon. You can watch me live or you can watch me later. And hopefully a number of you have sent the link out to your friends and relatives. And we will see you next week and we'll continue the conversation.
All
and
right.
Thank you.
Once again, thank you for listening and watching GA4 Justice with your host, the community activist, Georgia Allen. And don't forget to share this link with other people on your social media platforms. And you can even call them and talk about it as well. But nevertheless, we'll be back next Thursday from 12 until 1 on WBDM Radio, GA4 Justice with your activist, Ms. Georgia Allen. Let me close out with Tina Turner. Until next time, y'all have a wonderful day and blessed weekend.